Hi, this is Tony, and we're back on the bench. And this morning, we're going to be doing a reassembly video here on this reel that I've been working on. So this is the Ocean City Big Game Model 603. Okay, and this actually turned into a three-part project. So I've got a disassembly video on the YouTube channel. You can check that out. And then there's also kind of like a restore video, basically me cleaning and polishing all these chrome pieces, with some rubbing compound, some 4 steel wool, some scotch pads, things like that, multi-purpose lube, and just getting, this surface as shined up as it can be, because as you can see, there is some rust and some pitting damage. Functionality-wise, this reel is ready to go, though. So this is the reassembly video for that. So we're going to start here with some of the basic stuff. We're going to apply some reel grease here back to our clicker tongue and bushing down here. And then also on the spool shaft, okay, both sides. We're going to place that back into position there. I try to avoid doing too much cleaning and polishing on video, but I do have separate videos on that. You can also check those out on the YouTube channel. It bogs down a lot of the reassembly time and whatnot. So now we're ready to inspect our bridge assembly here. Okay, we've cleaned up all these pieces and parts the best that we can. And, we're getting ready to, just put it all back together and make sure that we hit all the proper lube points and whatnot. We're going to take some reel oil to this shaft once we've cleaned it off with some 4 steel wool, which I recently did. Okay, we've got our sleeve that goes back on. Turns real nicely. You've got a pin, and I've got a separate video also on this as well, just with bridge assemblies and how to service them. So if you like that kind of stuff, or if you're into learning more about these reels, I'd encourage you to subscribe to my channel. And if you find yourself working on a reel and you get stuck with something and you have a question, feel free to put that in the comments section in the video, and I'll do my best to get back to you in a timely fashion. I want to make sure that that pin is nice and flush. Okay. Quality parts from Ocean City, these parts, just really, really solid. Okay. Also clean out these threads with a brass wire brush, I find is helpful. And that way it's easy to get your star wheel back on for your drag. Okay. Okay, and then we've got a hard fiber washer that we've cleaned up that goes behind the main gear. Okay, and then we've got our main gear here, and I've actually already started to hit this with a little bit of grease here. Okay, I'm going to put that into position like that. You want to make sure that you don't get this grease, though, on your drag stack. Okay, now we're going to wait to put the drag stack back because it's accessible from the outside on this reel. So it's a lot easier to place it back into position once you have all these pieces and parts put back in. So I'm going to leave that off to the side right now. Okay. But other reels where you can't do that, you have to put the drag stack back on first, of course. Okay. Now we've got these pins here. All right. You want to inspect all the inside here. And before you start, putting all these pieces and parts back in, you want to take that reel grease to this bushing and also to your eccentric roller right here. Okay, you want to clean it up really well. That's all shown in the cleaning video and the restore process and whatnot. Put these pins back in, and these are actually keyed, these pins, and the slots have to face inward. Okay, it's kind of hard to see on video here, but they have to face inward so that the eccentric jack can slide up and down properly. Okay, and then you've got your springs to kind of hold them in place. All right, and then we've got our pinion gear assembly and our pinion yoke. We've cleaned these pieces off really well. We're going to hit it with some reel grease. Okay, these pieces and parts here. We've cleaned off our pinion gear the best that we can. Hit that with some grease. Put that into position. And this is where it gets a little tricky. You have to get this lined up just right. You should be able to push it down. Okay, and then you need to hold it there while you get your eccentric jack lined up. We've cleaned that up. A little bit of blue grease on here, because that's metal on metal, basically. Okay, and then we're going to slide that into position like so, and take this hook, slide the hook over, and that holds it all together. Okay, I really like that part about Ocean City reels, how they made that. And you're going to turn that screw a few turns. Just gently snug it, like so. And then you should be able to let off on it. Okay. Okay. So now we're ready to put our bridge assembly back into position here. And this can be a little tricky too. It's just kind of a little dance that you have to do with the pieces and parts here. Okay, and once you have it lined up like that, it should be good. Okay, and then we've got these ferrules here, these nuts that have to go back in that capture the screws. Okay, and don't forget to hit these screws with some oil, a little bit of bead of real oil on those threads. Okay, makes a big difference. Note the bigger screws go in the bottom here for those ferrule nuts, and you can actually turn the nuts from up here, which is also kind of another neat design of Ocean City, just to get them started at least. All right, and then take your screwdriver. Two smaller screws that go on the top of the bridge here. Yeah, it was common to be able to have access to your drag stack from the outside of the reel, you know, when you were on a boat out on the ocean and you started locking into some bigger game fish. You needed to have access to this to swap out your drag. And so that's why that's like that. For some reason, this isn't quite going in all the way. So sometimes when that happens, just kind of back off on some of the screws, get everything lined up. You don't want to start tightening everything down completely. Okay, so once you have these snugged up on top, the two shorter screws, okay, your bridge assembly is pretty much complete. So now we're going to sort out the rest of our screws here, pieces and parts. We made sure we've cleaned up all the rest of this the best that we can, okay? So once more, we're going to inspect in here and make sure we get all the sand and grit or anything else of that kind out, all right? And then we're going to We're going to get ready to put this back, but real quick, before we do that, I'm just going to do a little bit of blue grease right here at these points. Make sure that eccentric is going up and down real nicely and smoothly. Okay. Also going to double check these two bottom screws here. Okay. Snap that back into place. We're going to line up our holes. We've got 4 of them in these positions right here. And then there's a couple of different sizes of screws here. This one may not actually be an original one. It looks like it's a little longer. You just want to make sure that you've got a shorter one down here at the bottom. I don't know the history of this reel or who had it, who's been using it, or what they did with it. I'm just working with the pieces and parts that are here, basically. And we're going to go back and forth and balance the load out on the plate. Okay, have something like that. Just gonna dry it off a little bit. All right, so now we're ready for the drag stack. Okay, and what I like to do here is get a nice clean paper towel laid out right here. We've cleaned off all these washers here. So I'm just going to spread them out. These are nice, solid leather washers, and they're still very usable. All of them. They're in great shape. So once we've cleaned them off, we're just going to slide those back down into position. We've got a metal washer that goes on top, and then another leather washer, keyed washer, leather, and then this is kind of like a big, thick metal washer that rests on top, and then a tension washer there. Okay, so once you have your drag stack back in orientation here, so to speak, you're ready to put the rest of these pieces and parts back in here. So we've got a sleeve that goes back in there, and then there were a couple of different tension washers, thinner tension washers here. So we've got one here, and we've cleaned these up, the best that we can. There is some pitting and whatnot, some signs of usage, but functionality wise it'll all be fine. And the star wheel can be difficult to put on sometimes. I find with these threads that Ocean City's bridge sleeves have, they're pretty thick threads, and sometimes they're hard to get started. So there we go. What I find sometimes you have to do, and you got to be careful doing this, is you got to take a slotted screwdriver to the slots that are on the top of the sleeve here, the bridge sleeve, so that you can turn and get those threads started, and then once they start, they should loosen up. Okay. And then there's another tension washer here, tension spring. And then we've got our handle. Okay. And do just a little bead of real oil right here on the handle seam. Let that work its way in there. Snap that back on. Handle nut. And then don't forget your handle nut wrench. I'm going to snug that up a little bit, and then you got to get this lined up just right. I'm going to do a little bead of real oil also on these threads right here to help prevent any further corrosion or rust damage, for that matter. Should be able to turn that, and you can just take kind of a stubby screwdriver and just give it kind of like a 1/8 turn so that it doesn't, get away from you. Okay. And we're going to try this this reel out and see how it performs here. So we'll start with our drags. Okay. You can definitely feel those drags are working. Really nice, smooth drag system, those leather washers. Really, really nice. Okay. We'll tighten that up a little bit. Really smooth operator, this reel. And that comes from the quality construction and components and design. Really strong clicker. And then we'll check our free spool. Free spool's working great. So, as you can see, that is a pretty smooth operator. So there you have it. That's the Ocean City Big Game Model 603 saltwater reel, all serviced up and ready to go. So thanks again for watching. This is Tony with Back on the Bench. If you liked the video, please do give it a thumbs up, and if you'd like to see more, please do subscribe. Make sure you hit that notification button, and if you watch the video and you have some questions, feel free to drop those in the comments section, and I will try to get back to you. And we'll see you next time.